huge night coming up for the state of Georgia. Atlanta, Game 4 at home in the Farm against the Bucks, down 2-1. Must win game for the Hawks. You also have the Braves, who are currently 4.5 games back from the first place Mets, beginning a 3-game series against the aforementioned New York Mets tonight with Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves. Just a huge night coming up. Glad you guys are alongside us today. Got a lot to dive into. Again, Game 4, got some Braves talk. We have a little bit of college football strength of schedule talk to get into as well. But Cam, let's start with the Hawks, man. We got the reports coming out yesterday just as we got off the show. MRI reveals that Trae Young has a bone bruise in his foot. We all saw the injury where he stepped on the official's foot. Looked like he kind of rolled his ankle a little bit. So now it's been determined that it's officially a bone bruise for Trae Young. What's the latest we're hearing about his availability tonight?
Well, he's probably going to get put to probable. He's still questionable right now. Like you called it yesterday, probable probably 2-3 hours before the game. But Trae Young's going to play. He knows it's do or die tonight. He's going to play. I watched some of the highlights again last night. I wouldn't say he looked fine, but he looked okay running on it in the fourth quarter. One time he had to sprint down the court, getting back on defense, and he looked decent. So he'll play. The Hawks show up. I think they'll win tonight. Tie this thing up 2-2 going to Milwaukee and, keep this series going. But it's do or die. It is do or die.
I have a question. Kevin Thomas brought this up yesterday. Very good point. Say he can't play over like 25 minutes. Say they limit him so much. And say if they do that, would you rather just him sit this game to make him healthier for the next game? I don't think so.
No.
I don't agree with that, but some people are bringing that up.
No, I mean, if you lose this game, the series over, and I don't think you can win without Trae Young. I mean, even in the games where he's not scoring 30 points, I think he had 18 assists in one game earlier in the playoffs. So when he's not scoring 30, he's getting the assists. You have to have Trae Young, especially with Bogdanovich banged up as well.
Yeah.
You don't have that guy who can create points for himself outside of Trae Young and Bogdanovich, maybe Danilo Gallinari, but to a very limited sense, right? He gets his limited minutes and he can score. He can get off of some pick and rolls, and if he's one-on-one, he can hit the fadeaway. But outside Trae Young, you really don't have that guy on your roster that can create his own points. I mean, Cam, I think if Trae Young isn't at least 90% tonight, right, able to go out there and get buckets, I think this series is over.
Yeah, Trae Young can't give you 40 minutes tonight. Yeah, it's over. They need him to be a warrior tonight, like a legit warrior, come out here and put on a crazy performance like he did game 1. If he can't do that, they can pack them bags. But him playing 25 minutes, then resting, the Hawks they're not deep enough for that with Milwaukee. They're just not.
We got multiple people out there. A lot of people are saying that. I don't know if you guys agree with it or not. Like, a lot of people are saying tough it out. Ben Troops said it on 3 and Out yesterday. Yeah. Hey man, this is how legends are made. You want to be a big dog in the league. Bone bruise. Ben said that he had a bone bruise when he played, and he still played it through. He goes, your teammates are going to be able to lift you up and do that more. He said it's going to be a lesser type of thing whenever you are the guy, though. You are the guy, and you have this type of injury. But a lot of people are just like, yo, dude, they think he's just going to play anyways, and he's going to tough it out. But
I think he can tough it out, but also saying that, like, tough it out to me means you go out there and play. What we're talking about is how effective can he actually be? I mean, toughing it out means to me you're actually on the court and you're playing. Toughing it out has nothing to do with like your actual performance itself. So I think the question is, what kind of performance can Trae Young put on tonight? And that to me is like, yeah, you can tough it out, and like not taking anything away from Ben, but I think playing tight end in the NFL is a little bit different than playing point guard in the NBA, whereas you're playing tight end, you have a bone bruise. Listen, I have to go hard for 5 seconds and then I get a minute break.
Yep.
Right. I have to go hard for 5 seconds and I get a minute break. Trae Young has to be up and down the court, and you're planting off of that. And again, none of us here are doctors. We established this yesterday.
Yes.
None of us here are doctors, but I got to think it's such an intricate motion. What he does hitting 3-pointers, that the slightest thing can really affect that. If he's not able to get the same kind of lift, if he's feeling pain as he's shooting those shots, if he can't get the same kind of elevation, because I mean, we talked about his floaters throughout, right? If he can't get the same kind of elevation and get that touch on his floaters, he's not the same player. And if he's not the same player, the Hawks don't stand a chance. So I don't think anyone's saying they think Trae Young won't, quote unquote, tough it out. I think it's more so if he does play, what can he give you?
Yeah. No, it's if he's not fully healthy, if he's not regular Trae Young, if he, even whenever, say you're right, he loses 15% of his capability, dude, I don't think there's a chance. I think the Bucks are already that much better, so you need to almost be perfect of a team to try to beat the Bucks. And if you even have a glimpse of Trae Young being hurt, they're gonna push him defensively because they are a pretty good defensive team, and you know what I mean. So they're gonna stop him one way or the other. They're gonna take advantage of this injury.
Well, and for the Hawks now, it's a pretty much. I think this is a must win. If you go down 3-1,
yes.
If you go down 3-1, it's over, and you're gonna have to, I think, win this next one and steal the next one after that. And you have to hope Bogey can get a little bit healthier and give you something. But again, if they're both playing, you kind of saw it after he came back in, Cam, they would hide him, especially when they went to the half court. It would be Herter carrying the ball up the court and Trae Young kind of hiding in the corner, and they just kind of motion him along the baseline, right? That's not what got the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals. What got the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals was Trae Young taking the ball at the top, going off the high pick and rolls, and then if somebody dropped back, he could take the shot. If they pushed him, he goes around him and throws up either the lob or the alley-oop to Capella or John Collins, right? That's what has made the Hawks so effective. I love Kevin Huerter, but Kevin Huerter's at his best getting the ball coming off a screen, just catching the ball in motion. He's not at his best playing point guard, right? And then you can't have Lou Williams having to play a ton of significant minutes for you as well. I love Lou Williams, but where's Lou Williams at his best? Lou Williams is at his best when the other team's tired and you put him in with 3 or 4 minutes left to go in the quarter, right? That's when Lou Williams is at his best. You saw the Hawks get exposed in the fourth quarter when Trae Young and Lou Williams were on the court at the same time. The guy, Cam, I think has to step up in a huge way tonight. He's a guy that's been talking about his money, wants to get paid, wants to get that max deal. John Collins. If you want that max deal, your star players hurt, your other star players hurt, you're that guy. You have to step up, and I think this is a huge night for John Collins.
Yeah, I agree. John Collins is supposed to be the second option. Last year, he averaged 21 and 10. This year, about 18 and 8. He has to give you about 30 and 12 tonight. That's what he has to do tonight. If he wants this max contract, which I mean, John Collins he's a nice player, he's a good player. I don't know. I don't think he's a max contract guy. But if he wants to prove that he's worthy of a max contract, why not do it against the Bucks? Why not give you 2 solid games against the Bucks and 2 good wins against the Bucks and let Trae Young get that last one? But yeah, he has to show up tonight. He does.
And you want to talk about how significant Trae Young is right now. And this is from Justin Fan on Twitter. Right now, Paul George is at 735 minutes played in the playoffs, right? A lot of that because Kawhi Leonard's hurt, right? And so he had to step up, and he's playing for the Clippers, trying to keep him in the playoffs. Got a huge performance out of him last night. 735 minutes played in the playoffs. The next highest is Trae Young at 568, and they've played less games than the Clippers, so it kind of averages out to probably a little bit closer than it sounds. Trae Young has played at 568 minutes. And he is the reason why you are this far in the playoffs.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so if you're John Collins and you're sitting there looking at Trae Young and he's got the bone bruise, and you're looking over at Bogey and he's dealing with the knee injury that probably won't be better until after the season, you have to step up. I think one thing they can probably flip is John Collins does not need to be guarding Giannis. I don't think because it just takes up so much energy trying to get down the court and guard Giannis. I thought Capella did a really good job, and I know they struggle when they put Capella and Brooks Lopez and Giannis on the court at the same time. But John Collins, especially tonight, Cam, I don't think he can be matched up on Giannis too much, because if he is, that's going to take up 100% of his energy.
Yeah, I agree. People, they didn't think last game, they didn't bring up John Collins had like 4 fouls in the third quarter because he was guarding Giannis. That's what really kind of messed up the game and messed up the flow. And then again, John Collins he's a good defender, but you have to be smart guarding Giannis, knowing where to send him towards the help and things like that. He just needs to make this an offensive game. Of course, you want to play defense, but make this an offensive night. Go get 30. That needs to be the main focus. Then they have Capella and what's his name? 1701. I can't get it right. 01U. I
Okongwu?
think Okonwu.
Okongwu? Yeah.
Okonwu. They
Well,
need
here's
to
my
have those.
question. Can
I
you
like
play? Can you play Capella and Okongwu at the same time?
it's not an offensive match made in heaven type scenario, but defensively, you might have to. You might have to. So you might just have to do that. I don't like it as offensive side, but defense, yes. To stop Giannis and Brook Lopez on the outside, you probably would have to do that.
I mean, I thought he played outstanding when he played in his limited stretches. And Okongwu, again, if he could get on the court, you let him play center, you let Capella play power forward, and then you have maybe the combo of go big, right? Put Gallinari out there too and let Trae Young work with somebody else. John Collins. I mean, that would be a really big lineup, right? I mean, we're going to see something different from Nate McMillan tonight, but I think that defensively probably gives you your best shot against the Bucks. But it's going to be really interesting to see. That being said, Okongwu's played unbelievable against Giannis. How realistic is it for us to expect a rookie to do that 2 games in a row against a 2-time MVP? Right, he's played outstanding. Capella has shown that he's a grinder, and he'll go up against the best you got, and he'll do it game in and game out, and he'll get double-digit rebounds and probably 12, 14 points. But outside of that, he's going to get tired eventually when he has to keep banging on these dudes, right? And so I don't know that we see that, because I think what Nate McMillan's doing right now is very much what you see with Lou Williams and Trae Young. Take Capella off, you can put Okongwu on, and it's not that big of a drop off. But I do think you're gonna have to do something different tonight, because defensively the Hawks just got massacred in the last couple games.
Yeah, they got to switch it up tonight. I'm sure Nate McMillan will show off his coaching skills tonight, because it's like I said, it's do or die. But you're gonna have to think of some type of big lineup, because Milwaukee is just they're giants, they're huge, and you're gonna have to think of a lineup that could go that nice little 5 lineup that you can end the game with and end the second half with to take down the home stretch. So we'll have to see tonight. I still have the Hawks winning tonight with a bum ankle of Trae Young, but we'll have to see.
I think John Collins, I don't know if you guys agree. I know Cam, but I think John Collins needs to play at least 28 minutes, maybe into 30s.
Oh, for sure.
In order to, because when he doesn't do well, he gets taken out and everything. Yeah, he gets foul trouble. Yep. He gets taken out. He played 23 minutes last game, and he's supposed to be your second guy, right? And he's not playing enough minutes, because you're right. He had 4 fouls in the third quarter or something like that.
Well, not all in the third, but it came up very quickly. I think at the beginning of the third quarter, he picked up his 4th foul.
Yeah, so you can't be doing that. You're going to be the second option guy when you're only playing in the lower 20s.
He needs to be your number 2. Like
he needs to.
If you want to be that max contract guy you've been talking about, you need to be the number 2. And right now during the playoffs, for a lot of these games, you've been the 4th or 5th option. On the team, right? It's been Kevin Huerter stepping up when you needed him in a game 7 and winning that game for you. It's been Bogdanovich earlier, right? Capella's had massive games for you. You've been the 4th or 5th guy in a lot of these series. Lou Williams, I think, has had bigger impacts on some of these games than John Collins. If you're going to be a true competitor in the NBA playoffs, you have to have a few guys that can do it, right? And John Collins is supposed to be one of those guys for the Hawks. We'll see if he can do it tonight. We got to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We've got some Braves and college football talk to dive into. And also a little bit later in the show, excited about this one. We will catch up with the sons of legendary Braves announcer Skip Carey. We're going to talk some Braves baseball with them. There's some young and upcoming broadcasters themselves. Stefan and Chris Carey going to join us a little bit later here on Second Down. We'll talk some Braves with them as well. All that coming up next on Second Down. Do have a couple of local recruiting updates to dive into here. Second Down presented to you by the Uniform Source, 2 different locations in Savannah to take care of all of your uniform needs. Over the weekend, big offensive tackle from Brunswick High, Kenyatta Charlton, commits to Florida State. Mike Norvell getting a big-time player out of Brunswick, another big offensive lineman kind of out of that same tree of offensive linemen that produced guys like Warren McClendon, who's going to play a big role at Georgia coming up this year. So another Brunswick High offensive lineman heading to the Power 5. Mark Norvell picking up a big one there in that commitment. And then also yesterday, Langston Lewis, a wide receiver for Islands High, just absolute stud of a player. Highlight reels all over the place. And I believe brother Futchus Lewis, who's now playing defensive tackle at Georgia State. He commits to Central Michigan to play wide receiver. So a couple of recruiting updates from the local area real quick for you there. But I did want to stick with college football here, guys. PFF just released their college football magazine. We'll talk to Anthony Trace from PFF tomorrow on 3 and Out. But of interest in there, they put out their strength of schedule. And we kind of noticed this. I didn't know it was going to be this bad, but we kind of noticed this while we were talking about the college football playoff expansion, right? And how teams are going to start scheduling up because you can afford to eat a loss, right? A weak schedule would be more of a detractor for you than a loss to a really good team, right?
Yeah.
If you go undefeated on a weak schedule, probably not going to get the same look as a 1 or 2 loss team that plays a significantly tougher schedule, right? So Coastal Carolina was one of those teams we were talking about because the schedule, very light for the Chanticleers, right? Well, PFF has put out their rankings, number 130 on that list, the very last on that list, Coastal Carolina. That is FBS football. That's also a team that plays in the Sun Belt, which a lot of teams would argue is probably the 7th or 8th best conference, like one of those ones that's arguing. I think the American has pretty much locked up the Power 6 spot.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people would argue, especially after this past year, we saw Louisiana beating Iowa State, and App State was significant, or was really good. And you saw Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, they beat Zach Wilson and BYU in a top 10 matchup there at Coastal Carolina. So a lot of people really thought that Coastal Carolina was a team that could change some of this stuff when it comes to the 12-team playoff. Well, you look at their 2021 football schedule, and that, I think, is putting them in a really lose-lose situation. Number one, you have to go undefeated if you want to do anything in the postseason.
110%.
But I would say this. I think even if they go undefeated, Coastal Carolina isn't going to a New Year's Six Bowl.
No.
Like, they could go undefeated, beat everybody by 20 points, and they're not going to a New Year's Six Bowl, much less a college football playoff. It's something, unless something insane happens, but even then, I think probably a 1 or 2 loss team gets in over the Chanticleers. And honestly, with this schedule, I would say well deserved. Again, you play a Sun Belt schedule, and I still think it's so weak outside of that you don't have a chance to do anything significant in the postseason. You start with the Citadel, which FCS team, good FCS team, but FCS team. The biggest Power 5 school you play, actually the only Power 5 school you play, is Kansas, who I would argue, like, right there with Vanderbilt, might be the worst Power 5 school in terms of football. So that's your biggest Power 5 game. You also play Buffalo and UMass out of conference. Outside of that, pretty light slate in the regular season. For the Sun Belt, right, you have Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State's rebuilding. App State's going to be a tough one. Troy's going to be good, but then you don't play Louisiana.
Yeah, I heard them
during the regular season, right? So I think their only shot of getting anywhere outside of, I believe the New Orleans Bowl is where the Sun Belt winner goes unless they go somewhere bigger. I think their only shot of getting anywhere outside the New Orleans Bowl is to hope and pray that Louisiana's undefeated at the end of the year, which would take a lot because Louisiana plays Texas. They have to be undefeated at the end of the year, and you have to hope App State's undefeated when you play them. And App State would need to be ranked as well. And I need to look at App State's schedule to make sure App State and Louisiana don't play each other before Coastal Carolina plays them. But I think that's significant because even when you go to a 12 team, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're Coastal Carolina because you cannot afford a loss. Like think about what it took to get Coastal Carolina in the top 10 last
Yeah.
year. You had to beat BYU and Zach Wilson, go undefeated, win the Sun Belt, and you still weren't good enough to get into the playoff. You're setting yourself up for failure with these kind of schedules.
I think not only you're talking about with the 2 undefeated, they would have to go undefeated. Also, I talked about this last time we talked about them. I do think Buffalo's going to be a good team, but Buffalo's also, even if Buffalo went undefeated, besides losing 1 game to Coastal Carolina, they have a very weak, horribly weak schedule for Buffalo. So that's not even going to help them. So that's the only other team that would give them a boost in their resume. Even with that, no way. Dude. There's no way.
Yeah, and see, again, unfortunately for you, Louisiana plays App State the week before you do.
Dang, yep.
So I guess what you have to root for if you're a Coastal Carolina fan and you want any sort of shot at a significant postseason is you have to root for App State to beat Louisiana at Louisiana, Louisiana to win out the rest of the way, meet Louisiana in the Sun Belt Championship, and beat Louisiana.
You're like Charlie from like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like he's just
That's
looking at his board.
But also looking at App State's schedule, App State's second game of the season at Miami.
Oh, okay.
Hell.
So
Okay.
yeah, so like they're not going to be undefeated
Yeah.
when they get to you. So it just Coastal Carolina again probably could go undefeated this year, have a great team. New Orleans Bowl might be their pinnacle.
Well, a real good hope for them. I don't think there's much hope anyways. App State, say if they crush Miami, say if they crush Louisiana and stuff like that. Just say it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? But say if that does happen, and then
I don't know.
and
Miami
then
got
Coastal Carolina
shut out like 21 to
creams-
nothing by Louisiana Tech a
That's
couple
true.
years ago. So
and then
Sorry,
say if Coastal Carolina creams App State after them getting wins over those 2 schools.
the transitive,
not gonna happen,
You're doing
though.
the transitive factor, and that like it never applies in college football. You can't compare one game to another game. It doesn't work. You're like, I think there was one year where you did that, and because like Kansas beat somebody in the Big 12 that beat somebody in this league, and Kansas got beat by an FCS school. If you do the transitive property like that, there was a Division II school that was better than Alabama. If you just did this team beat this team that 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 beat Alabama, then the transitive property had a Division II school being better than Alabama. The transitive property doesn't work.
Well, say Miami is, I think Miami will be the second best team in the ACC. Some people think North Carolina, but say if they are the third best team, and
I see what you're getting at, but App State's
where would App State be ranked?
App State's game versus Miami only comes down to win or losses and the significance to Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
And it's just because of the record. Because in college football, unlike any other sport that we cover, like not even the NFL, wins and losses matter a lot to people.
Mhm.
Like your record matters a lot to people. The NFL, we still talk about 6 loss teams being Super Bowl contenders, right? We don't do it in college basketball. We don't do it in baseball. We don't do it in any other sport. College football is
Giants were 9-7 when they won.
college football is the only sport where we do this. But that being said, I don't want to get stuck on Coastal Carolina for too long, but I do think that's interesting because it's going to have to change. You can't go into 2023 if this 12-team format gets passed with that schedule and still think, oh, well, we'd still be one of the 6 highest ranked conference champs. Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
Like the AAC is probably going to be ranked above you. Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC would all be above you. So I think that the scheduling is definitely going to have to step up, but it could become more difficult as some of the bigger conferences start narrowing who they're willing to play in out of conference, right? And also, you ask, why doesn't Coastal Carolina play South Carolina? Why don't they play Clemson, right? I think that's a lose-lose for schools like that, right? You ask, why hasn't Georgia played Georgia Southern? I'd say it's probably twofold. Last time Georgia played Georgia Southern, Georgia Southern took them to overtime in Athens. But the other side of that is, from the media perspective, it's a lose-lose for Georgia, right? Because if Georgia beats Georgia Southern, they have to beat them by 40, or it's a quote-unquote disappointment. And if they don't beat them by 40, or God forbid they lose, it's you lost. So you're either supposed to win, or it's obscene that you lost.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a big reason why you don't see these inter-state out-of-conference games scheduled as much as they used to be. Is it just kind of a lose-lose for the bigger school? Like, what does Clemson gain by beating Coastal Carolina?
Nothing. It's just another game that they played, and they'd rather go to a different
Now,
school and do
flip
that.
side of that, it's a huge boost for that other school.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's like these schools are all in competition. Now, I know there are some states, I think South Carolina might be one of them, where you have to schedule, like because you're a publicly funded school, you have to schedule a school from inside the state. Like, let me look at Clemson's schedule for this year, but I'm pretty sure there are some schools where you have to, by law, schedule
That makes sense, actually.
another school that's inside your state, and I'm not including South Carolina State.
Oh, okay.
I think you have to play a lower level school, and I think it's just for the economics of the lower level.
Yeah.
School. It's managed like that. There's a few states around the country that mandate that. For the bigger schools, is you have to play one of those schools. I think it's just sort of keep
I like that.
I think it's
actually.
to keep the revenue in state, right?
Yeah,
Instead
I
of
like that.
Clemson going out and getting a school from another state to come in and pay a school in state, keep the revenue in state. There's a few laws like that. But in terms of strength of schedule, you might have looked at the rundown already. I'm not sure.
I did. Yes.
Okay, Cam,
This time,
who do you
yes.
think has the hardest schedule in 2021 according to PFF?
Hardest strength of schedule. It may be. Let's say Ole Miss.
Let's talk it out. Who would it be, right? It has to be someone that plays a significant amount of top 10 teams, right?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is a really good guess.
That is a good guess.
The
yeah.
hardest, same division, the team with the hardest schedule, according to PFF, Arkansas.
I know. I'm kind of coming back to my Arkansas, prediction.
Well, no,
oh,
but
God.
But this is what I said with Arkansas, and I'll say with Georgia Tech as well. You could see these teams win less games than they won last year, but you could also say the teams got better, if that makes any sense whatsoever, right? Just based on the schedule, right? Arkansas last year had to play an all SEC schedule. They won a lot more games than a lot of people thought they were going to. And Georgia Tech, same thing, all ACC schedule. They had the one out of conference game. I forget who it was against, but still rebuilding under Jeff Collins. And a lot of people are saying, oh, this is the year. Jeff Collins has some of his recruits in there now. You have a full offseason to get your offense and defense installed. You should be good to go. I just pump your brakes. Let's start with Arkansas. Arkansas starts with Rice, which should be a 50-point win for Arkansas. And then the rest of their schedule looks like this. Hosting Texas, hosting Georgia Southern, neutral site game against Texas A&M, at Georgia, at Ole Miss. That's the first half of their schedule. Texas A&M's a top 10 team. Texas, I think, is going to be a top 20 team at least when they play
20
in Arkansas. But Texas A&M's a top 10 team. Georgia's going to be a top 4 team, even if they lose to Clemson. I had to imagine if they keep it close, they'll be a top 4 team. Ole Miss is a really good team. All right, that's the first half of your schedule. After that, you play Auburn, who's going to be good. You play Mississippi State, who's going to be better. You play at LSU, who I think is going to have a bounce back, and you play at Alabama. Then you finish up the season against Missouri.
Yeah.
Right?
Those poor
I know there's so many teams. Like every team in the SEC West, you can pretty much start with.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Right?
dude.
Because you're like, well, you pretty much just go ahead and start with your schedule and say you got to play Alabama and you got to play LSU.
Yeah, dude.
Or if you're LSU, you got to play Alabama, you got to play Texas A&M, and you got to play Auburn. Like that, though you have to. And then that's before you go out of conference. That's before we give over your crossover. Where you're LSU, you got to play Florida every year.
Yep.
Right? So it's like if you're ever thinking like who's the toughest strength of schedule, it's usually going to be like one of like 10 teams. I think South Carolina is usually up there because South Carolina has to play Georgia every year. Every now and then they have to play LSU or Alabama in a crossover. They have to play Florida every year. Oh, and by the way, you end your season every year against Clemson.
Oh, dude.
You
Yeah.
gotta watch that game.
Shane Beamer put on a brave face. I will give Shane Beamer credit. Shane Beamer said, listen, because somebody asked him, it's like, Coach, you guys have to play Clemson. And he's like, whoa, we don't have to play Clemson. We get to play Clemson.
There you
like,
go, baby.
Shane, appreciate the brave face, bro, but right now, that's just going to be a butt kicking. So it's just, you could usually start with teams like South Carolina, right? It's like, oh, so in conference, you have to play Georgia and Florida every year, and then you finish with Clemson? Ooh. Oh, that hurts.
Just having Clemson on there alone, dude. But
Well, or Georgia Tech. You're going to play Clemson every year. Oh, and you got to finish with Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah, exactly. And I guess even you can say that sometimes, say when FSU was good, even with Florida sometimes back when FSU was winning like championships, Florida has to play Georgia every year. And at the end of the year, they had to play FSU. It's not that like that anymore, but you're right. I think South Carolina is usually always in the top 10 of just being like, dude, we're screwed from the get go.
I think
Like,
there's a legitimate shot. Georgia Tech, just looking at their schedule, goes 3-9, and you can call it a good season.
yeah, oh, dude, ooh, yeah, because
You start with Northern Illinois, which you should win that game. Then you play Kennesaw State, which we would have said they would have beat the Citadel, but the Citadel beat them. Why? Because they run the triple option. Oh, well, here comes Kennesaw State. And they're a really good football team.
Can I try to guess the Owls?
Huh?
The Owls?
Yeah, Kennesaw State Owls.
Got it, baby.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah, they're playing second week of the season, but still that's gonna be a tough game.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be they're not gonna roll over. It's gonna suck. It's gonna be one of those games, right? Where it's the flex bone triple option coming at you 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're gonna have a lot of fans having PTSD attacks to Paul Johnson's era, right? So it's gonna be tough. Oh, and then after that, kick off your ACC slate at Clemson.
God.
Then
Dang.
after that, maybe the second best team in the ACC,
North Carolina. No, oh my
And you
God.
play Pitt, who's going to be really good. I think one of the wins in the ACC you have to hope you get is Duke.
That's hope.
Yeah, and then I'll call
Yeah, he said, I hope.
I'll call Virginia a coin flip game because I don't think Virginia is very good this year. But you play Virginia Tech, Miami, Boston College, Notre Dame, and Georgia to finish the season.
Dude, Virginia Tech is.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
Again,
Oh,
And
man.
Notre Dame.
finish the season. Virginia Tech at Miami, Boston College at Notre Dame, Georgia.
Dang.
Dude.
Okay.
You know what that looks like? That looks like someone was playing NCAA football 2005 and created a schedule.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Create
unfortunate.
their own
They're
schedule.
like, I want to play Virginia Tech. Ooh, I want to play at Miami. Boston College, I have to play because it's a conference game. Ooh, let's play at Notre Dame and then host Georgia. That's like somebody did a creative schedule on NCAA football.
Georgia Tech fans, we're sorry. I know you're probably grabbing the wheel right now as hard as you can, angry as you can be, tears swelling up in your eyes.
Yep.
That's unfortunate, dude. That's unfortunate. That's a one hell of a schedule, dude.
Yep. But quickly here, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back again. Sons of a local broadcasting legend going to hop on with us. They're starting their own broadcasting career. Christian Gokel alongside Cam Ursery and Cody Queen here on Second Down. We'll be right back after this. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Glad everybody is hanging out with us here on this beautiful afternoon. Really excited to speak with our next guest here. You can hear their dad pretty much every night over on Bally's on the call of the Braves, legendary broadcaster Chip Caray. But these two guys are starting their own careers in broadcasting with UGA Sportsnet and WUOG there in Athens. Joining us here on Second Down, Stephon Caray and Chris Caray. Guys, how are y'all? Listen, we're off to a rip roaring
going all right.
Think we may.
Great.
There we go.
Yeah. There we go. I think we. Yeah, Chris. Fine. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we got you now again. Chris and Stephon Caray, how are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. We're sitting in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, getting ready to do a baseball game for the Cape Cod Baseball League this summer. We've been up here for the past couple of weeks, so we're really excited to be on. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, guys. And Chris, I'll start with you, man. Both of you guys at Georgia, trying to finish up your degrees in sports broadcasting. Grady, one of the elite programs just in sports broadcasting, sports journalism, period. I wanted to ask you, though, man, when you look on the CV and you see all the stuff you've accomplished, does it ever feel weird that most people just start with grandson or great-grandson of Harry Caray, grandson of Skip Caray, and son of Chip Caray?
Well, I got part of that question there. I think that it's a little spotty, but let me just ask, were you asking about just going to Grady and being the son is just an interesting situation of my father?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, just with the resumes, right? All the things you've accomplished, but most people, I have to imagine, start with who your dad, grandpa, and great-grandpa are. Let's try to reconnect with them here,
Okay,
Cody.
yeah.
I'll get the phone number. We'll try to reconnect with them, doing it over the phone. Listen, they're on location up there, but yeah, interesting that when you look at your resume, Cody, great-grandpa, grandpa, and dad, all legends in broadcasting in and around the Braves, and now you're starting to come up and do your own thing.
Dude, absolutely love it. Young guys going into business, as you guys know. Me and Christian came in together about 4 years ago. So seeing these young guns up here trying to make a living out of something that's amazing. I know you, Cam. Are you about to be on board with us permanently and everything? You interned, you did your grind, you did it. It worked out. You got any advice for these young guys?
Just stay with it. Don't give up. And just do as much as you can. Anything they ask, don't question. Just do that, whether it's traveling or anything like that. And me personally, I'm just one guy that's, the money's good, but you got to do what you love to do. That's what you got to do. Do what you love to do and just respect the grind. So that's the advice I got to give.
And I think we got the guys. Listen, internet's overrated. We're going to try these guys over the phone here. Again, joining us on the line, Stephon and Chris Caray. And Chris, what I was asking you was, man, all the things you accomplish with your journalism, with your broadcasting, creating podcast, WUOG there in Athens. But I think the first thing everybody has to start with, right, is who your great-grandpa, grandpa, and dad are.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting lineage. When we got to the University of Georgia, it was a little bit different because the way the school operates is there's so many greats, there's so many giants of the university that have come through in the journalism industry. Think about Ernie Johnson, Maria Taylor, Amy Robach, and then my father is of course somebody who went through the school. It was always the place that we wanted to go, and it's exceeded our expectations exponentially since being there. So it is a wonderful thing to have. People do notice it from time to time. Most of the time, they don't put too much weight into it. And I think that's a wonderful experience because they can take us for who we are and accept us as the broadcasters that we are versus putting that name on the line and viewing us in any other light. Because at the end of the day, we're all broadcasters. We're all trying to get to a point where we want to be successful. And it is competitive, but we try to build each other up and support each other in any way that we can.
Well, I know it's got to be interesting for your dad because when you're the play-by-play voice, I'm not going to say you can't be critical, but you can't be overly critical. But that's what our job here is, to complain about the Braves on a day in and day out basis. So, Stephon, I want to ask you, man, watching the Braves, how incredibly frustrating has this season been for you, as I'm sure a Braves fan, but also does your dad ever give you just the the real response is that he's not allowed to say on air?
I mean, yeah, there's obviously those personal moments. He's a fan of the team, so he's passionate. It's a team he's been connected to since his dad was working with the team. You know, for 25 years, he was in that booth before my dad took over. So obviously, there's going to be some gut. Obviously, he's going to have opinions on things just like everybody else would. But this season's been obviously not quite what everybody's expected. The Braves have been plagued with injury, lots of struggles. In particular, hasn't been as great as it could be. But again, it's such a hard job coming back after the COVID year, coming back with such high expectations after a 60-game season, now stretching it to 162, and arguably the most competitive division in all of Major League Baseball. Things are going to happen. But to answer your question, yeah, he does certainly have opinions about what's going on, but oftentimes he knows he's got that personal bias and journalist at the end of the day.
Hey, Chris, I want to ask you, because I think obviously you guys have goals well beyond what you're doing right now, which what you're doing right now, I mean, when you look down the Twitter bios for both you guys, hugely impressive. But obviously you want to make a career out of this. But I think what's really cool to see out of your dad, you mentioned some people like Ernie Johnson and Maria Taylor, is they kind of become synonymous with the sport that they do or the team that they cover, right? So we have like Marv Albert is covering his final event, which is the Eastern Conference Final between the Bucks and the Hawks, right? Just when you see what your father and grandfather and great-grandfather have become, and just kind of the responsibility that comes with that, and you see the other people that have graduated from Grady, like you mentioned, Ernie Johnson, Maria Taylor, how much of that do you want, where you can just become part of a group's fandom for their team?
Well, I think that's every broadcaster's dream, is to be accepted by a team or a group. And the city of Atlanta and the Braves have been so wonderful to our family and have been so accepting of my father for the most part. Now, you know, you have some judgmental on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you're not gonna make everybody happy.
You know, it's almost in stages and tiers, because, you know, Harry was in some ways the most iconic broadcaster in history. And it wasn't as much because of technical ability, but because of his personality. And then you have his son, Skip, who, in my eyes, is criminally underrated, not just for baseball, but when he called the Hawks in basketball. And then my dad is a good blend between the two, but he's living in a world where it's a little bit more censored, a little bit more, you have to be technical, you have to be on every single day. You can't make mistakes, or else they will call you out on it and all those things. So I think right now in the broadcasting world, for him, he's living in a much harder situation than a lot of other people have been, and broadcasters nowadays, because, you know, he has to be on every single night. And for the Braves to be as successful and as kind as they've been and generous to our family, I think that that's something that I would dream to have, and Stefan would dream to have down the road as well.
Guys, I'm sorry I have to cut this interview off short, but we do have to go to break here. Can we do this again tomorrow? Because I know this kind of got cut up with the technical difficulties. Can we do this again tomorrow?
Yeah, you let me know whenever you want us on. Thank you so much for having us, and we'll pick it up tomorrow.
Absolutely. Again, Stefan and Chris Carey joining us here on Second Down. We have to go to break. We're way over. We'll come back with more Second Down right after this. Do have some contract news from the NFL to get into here. Kyle Pitts has finally signed his deal. I know they've pretty much gotten everyone else in. Richie Grant signing last week, their second-round pick. But Kyle Pitts, according to Adam Schefter, has signed a 4-year, fully guaranteed $32.9 million contract for the rookie 4th overall pick from the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons pretty much finalizing that rookie class there. I know just a deep exhale for a lot of Atlanta Falcons fans now going out and trying to target some of these free agents. I know Justin Houston has been a guy that's been linked and rumored to the Falcons there. Big show coming up today on 3 and Out. We'll catch up with Zach Miles. He's currently with U.S. Speed Skating Communications, the Olympic team out there, formerly of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. We're going to talk Olympics with him. Also, home team Brandon Leak is 680, the fan, and we'll catch up with Rich Styles of the Back Nine Boys, talk about Harris English's win over the weekend. All that next on 3 and Out.